Did you know that there's been 80 years of G.I. Joe comic books? Hey, let's take a look at some. So we start in 1942 with this collection of G.I. Joe comics by Dave Brieger. This was a series of comic strip panels that appeared in Yank magazine and Stars and Stripes. This book is from 1945. These comic panels ran from 1942 through 1945, all the years the United States was in World War II, and it is about Private Joe Brieger, named after the artist-writer Dave Brieger, and GI, General Issue, Joe being your everyman. This series of comics were very popular, and it led to the widespread usage of the term G.I. Joe. This is where it comes from. Gee, what a shame. Look how your new saxophone arrived. Why, darling, what makes you think I associate with anyone else but you? Boy, he stopped every airborne invasion cold. Snip. Hey, look, name G.I. Joe. Incidentally, Dave Brieger and I share a birthday, April 15th. He was born just a little bit before me in 1908. That takes us to the Ziff Davis G.I. Joe comics, 1951 through 1957. These took place in the Korean War, and it lasted 51 issues. In here, G.I. Joe is Joe Birch. He's also a Private Joe Birch. Now, the writer of this comic series is unknown. The artist is Alan Anderson. This is a reprint of the first issue. This story here, The Ram. This is drawn by Henry Sharp. I don't know who drew this opening story here, but it is drawn very good. Very good. It's drawn very well. Basically, this Private Joe Birch is kind of inept in a way. Here is the panel that was then painted for the cover. Okay, this next story, Red Devils of Korea. This was drawn by Mike Sikowski. Then you got this little comedy type of strip here, or story. This isn't really about G.I. Joe. This is just in the comic. And you've got a prose piece. Okay, this looks like a one-page instructional thing about Army hand signals. Arm and hand signals. Oh, jeez. Learn how to read, Kevin. Okay, G.I. Joe in Soul City Lou. This is drawn by Henry Sharp. Little story about, G.I. Joe trying to get the girl, but he's always thwarted by his sergeant. Let's see, what's his sergeant's name? Mulvaney, I believe. There's a picture back here. Yeah, Sergeant Mulvaney. So basically it's the two characters, G.I. Joe and Sergeant Mulvaney. They're always at odds. Joe is always trying to get away with something. Not really get away with something. He's just trying to survive the war and find a little bit of happiness. And Sergeant Mulvaney is always trying to steal that happiness away. But at the same time, he always picks Joe to go on every mission with him together. So here we go. Make Way for the Press. This is drawn by Irv Novick. And it's inked by Frank Giacola. Okay, Beauty on the Battlefront. Unknown artist. Unknown writer. Looks like the same artist from the first story. Drawn really well. Another one-page instructional thing. Okay, so some more comics from Ziff Davis. Wild Boy, Prince of the Jungle. And then this is the back cover of the comic. This was drawn by Henry Sharp. You can actually read the entire run of every issue online. There is a website where they've scanned in cover to cover every single issue. Okay, now we get to DC Comics Showcase Presents G.I. Joe. This is issues 53 and 54. These are the only two issues of Showcase Presents that had G.I. Joe. So these are stories that take place in World War II again, but these are tie-ins for the brand new G.I. Joe action figure that had come out in 1964. This issue 53 is from 1964. The next issue is from 1965, December and February. So Showcase was a comic anthology series that would feature new characters to gauge reader interest, and if they took off, then they would get their own series. This first issue is written by Robert Kanigher. He is the writer that wrote the very first Silver Age comic story, which was from Showcase number 4, and it introduced Barry Allen's Flash. You can see here, Kubert. This was penciled by Joe Kubert, the one and only Joe Kubert. It was inked by Irv Novick, the artist from the Ziff Davis comics. So you've got actual G.I. Joe toy related pages, basically introducing the toy, but then you go into these stories. All these stories are reprints from earlier comics. So you've got Hot Corner. This was reprinted from G.I. Combat issue 59 from 1958. As far as G.I. Joe is concerned, this features the Action Soldier. And now you get Frogman SOS. This is reprinted from G.I. Combat issue 60, also from 1958. As far as G.I. Joe is concerned, featuring the Action Sailor. Okay, so now you've got Battle Arithmetic. This is reprinted from G.I. Combat issue 52 from 1957, and this is featuring the Action Marine. Now we get back to a page specifically drawn for this comic to sell the toy. And you can see the figures here in some of their outfits you could buy and then redress the action figures in. Well, look at this. King Kong and Godzilla Aurora models to add to the classic Universal monsters. That's fun. And then we've got issue 54. This was, written by Robert Kanigher and drawn by Joe Kubert. There's also a story in here written by Bob Haney and drawn by Jerry Gardinetti. This is specifically for the G.I. Joe toy. I look at John F. Kennedy memorial thing, specifically for G.I. Joe. But then you get into the reprint stories. Blind Night Fighter. This is reprinted from Our Army at War, issue 75 from 1958, and it's going to feature the Action Pilot. And now you get Cliffhanger. This is reprinted from Star Spangled War Stories from 1956, and it's going to feature the Action Soldier. Okay, The Clean Sweep. This is reprinted from All American Men of War, issue 67 from 1959, and it's going to feature the Action Sailor. It would be fun to read these in 1964, 1965, get out your G.I. Joe, America's fighting man, movable fighting man, and act out these adventures. See, you've got the ad for the TV. Ad for the toy as seen on TV. Pretty cool. Oh, slot cars. And I've got an issue of G.I. Combat, which is something they would have pulled the stories out from to reprint in Showcase. This is a later issue. This is G.I. Combat issue 264. This is from 1984. I got this because it's got a ninja and it looks cool. Look at that. Joe Kubert illustrated. The origin of Kana, the ninja shadow warrior. Love this. I haven't read this yet. I'm going to make a video in the future of my ninja comics. I have a ton, and I will read them all then. Hey, check it out. An Atari ad for Joust, the haunted tank. So, this haunted tank, the Saint and the Panzer, look at this. Art by Sam Glanzman. Remember my video about my Hercules comics? And of course I had the comics for the Hercules movies with Steve Reeves, but then I had that old Sam Glanzman Hercules comic, and I said, man, I like this stuff. I want to get more Sam Glanzman stuff. So look what I did. First, I found more Hercules comics. This looks like, the one I featured in that story. This will be fun to read. I have to get to it. Look at that. Awesome stuff. Another Hercules comic, this one from DC. I found these. I'm always scouring, like the dollar bins or cheaper when I go to comic conventions, when I go to the comic store. I flip through and I find stuff. This is issues 1 and 2 of a 5-issue series of Hercules from Marvel. But look, Texiera. It's got Mark Texiera from, Wolverine comics of the 90s. I love that guy. Okay, I've seen a bunch of every page I turn is an ad. I'll look at these later. But But this, here, right here, Atu by Sam Glanzman, the collected volumes. Look at that introduction by Timothy Truman. Wasn't he a Dungeons and Dragons artist? Yeah, he was the guy that illustrated the package art for the LGN action figure series from 1983. You know, Warduke. He's the guy that created the look. Check that out. This is awesome. I want to go here. I want to go into this picture and be there. I want to be him. Atu.
God bless you.
So it's these old Sam Glanzman stories all collected together. Look at this. It's awesome. Fighting dinosaurs. Wow. I can't wait to read this. This looks great. Woo! Well, while I'm showing you updates on my old videos, let me do some more. Hey, I did that recent video about my first comic book through my 5,000th comic, and that first comic was a Pink Panther. Check this out. I had some more. I got this Pink Panther issue 1 from Free Comic Book Day. I've got this even older issue of the Pink Panther than the one I got in January of 1981. That was when it had become, the company had become Whitman Comics. This is back in its previous name, Gold Key. So this is an older issue, and I found this in a box at a comic convention where I think every comic in there was like 25 cents, and I saw that it had written in pen on here, read, and as I was flipping through the boxes, I found another one that had read. So this came from the same kids collection, and I guess he wrote on the covers, these are the ones I still need to read. Look at this hot stuff from Harvey Comics. And he's reading Casper. Harvey Comics, that's the company that created, all these similar looking characters. Casper, Hot Stuff, Little Lulu, and of course, Richie Rich. Now, this didn't say read on it, so even if it's from the same kid's collection, this must have been one he already read. Doesn't matter. I got this because early 80s, I'm starting to, my friend Mike, he comes over, he sees that my brother and I have a stack of like 43 comics, and he says, look at all the comic books you have. You got a whole collection going. And we hadn't thought of it as a collection or anything. They had just been, my dad would stop at 7-Eleven every once in a while, and he'd just grab a couple of comics and bring them home to us. My mom got us a couple of subscriptions to comics. We got, The Incredible Hulk and various G.I. Joe, various comics in 1982. 1983 that were, I think, 6-month subscription runs, and we had a bookcase between our bedroom doors, and we just kept the comics in a stack on a shelf in the bookcase between our rooms, equidistance from our doors, and we could just grab an issue anytime we wanted. And so they were so fun to read that, we didn't throw them out. We just saved them there, and we would reread them, and we would get new comics. My dad would buy me, Fantastic Four, cool stuff like that. We just add them to the stack, and we had fun reading them. And here was Mike, 3 years older than me. He's getting into comics, and he's seeing it as like, oh, let's collect these, and he was astounded by how many we have. So back to the story, I realized, if collecting comics is a thing, and apparently we have a collection that seems impressive, maybe we should go after some more. And I remembered a couple girls up the street, Lori and Leslie Turbyville, twins. They had an older brother, Bo. And I remember he had a lot of comics. So we went over to Lori and Leslie's house and said, could we look at Bo's comics? Because he wasn't there. They took us into his bedroom, and they opened a drawer in the dresser, and the entire drawer was full of comics. Must have been hundreds of comics all laying in there. And I remember they were all Richie Rich. And we looked at them and said, Richie Rich? We wanted superheroes. We wanted Spider-Man. And we go, that's quite all right. We closed the drawer back up. So I've never read a Richie Rich comic, but as a kid, I did love the Richie Rich cartoon. I haven't seen it in, 40 years, maybe more. So I don't remember why I liked it, but I did. And I figured, hey, 25 cents, I can get me a comic. All right, enough of that. Well, while searching through these old comic boxes at conventions, I found a few other things. Of course, I made a video about my Planet of the Apes collection, ever-growing collection. And I have a lot of Planet of the Apes comics. I found some more. I got these 2 issues here, 1 and 2. Book 1, issue 104, book 1, issue 2. This is from Adventure Comics. So what is so special about this? Well, the cover here, issue 2, this is drawn by John Tobias. That is the creator of Mortal Kombat. This is pre-Mortal Kombat. Let's take a look at this. 1990. So Mortal Kombat came out in what? I don't know, 92, 93, 94, somewhere around there. You can look it up. But anyways, prior to that, he was a comic book artist. And he was working here at Malibu. This is the company that published the very first Image comics, and before Image spun off on its own, and later Marvel bought Malibu. But there are other comics from 1990 that have covers done by John Tobias. But this one I have, the two creators of the game, John Tobias and Ed Boon. Ed Boon, he was a computer programming guy that worked at the company Midway that made the video games. John Tobias was the artist. He was the one that created all of the characters. One last update, okay? I made a video about the Brady Bunch. It's getting a lot of views. Got my Brady Bunch podcast. I met Bobby. I met Cindy. Now I met cousin Oliver, Robbie Wrist. To Kevin, this happened 3 months before you were born. Robbie Wrist, Oliver. Yeah, pretty cool, huh? All right, so back to why we're here, G.I. Joe. This is the first issue, G.I. Joe issue number 1. Now, this is the actual, grab it here. This is the comic book itself that came out there in June 1982. This came out the same time as the toy line. This predated the cartoon. I tried to get my issue 1 signed by everybody. So I got it signed by the writer of the entire comic series, Larry Hama. Lori Hama. Okay, come on. To Kevin, Larry Hama. I got it signed by the inker, Bob McLeod. So who left did I need? I needed the penciler, Herb Trimpe. So I went all the way out to Rhode Island or somewhere years ago to go to a convention that he was going to be at. And I brought this. I had all my autographs on it. I was going to get him to sign it. Lo and behold, a lot of the people that were going to that convention, I'm talking about actors and artists, were all flying out of Los Angeles to get there. And the flight to leave the night before the convention started to get there, from LAX, there was some mad gunmen in the airport there, and they shut the airport down, canceled all the flights. And so when I arrived in Rhode Island, word was the reason why half of the tables here at the convention are empty is because none of those people could fly out of LAX. One of those people was Herb Trimpe. So I didn't get to meet him. Shortly afterwards, he died. So I didn't get his autograph on this, but I found his daughter online, and she sold me this G.I. Joe Order of Battle issue 2, signed by her father, Herb Trimpe. It's also signed by Larry Hama and inker Joe Del Vito. This is the issue that had the action figure from my favorite vehicle of the toy line. The vehicle was the Bridge Layer. The action figure in it was Toll Booth. Not only is he featured in this, but I bought from Herb Trimpe's daughter his actual original. This is the original artwork. Here it is. Pen. It's drawn pencil. You can see some white. I don't know if you can see it here. You got white out here. This is the original artwork for this. So I bought these together. Awesome. Not only that, this is also the issue that has the one G.I. Joe figure in this entire 4-issue Order of Battle series that was not in G.I. Joe. Rocky Balboa. He was featured in here. There was, unbeknownst to Hasbro, a toy deal worked out with Remco and Sylvester Stallone to produce Rambo toys. And so when Hasbro found out, they said, that's it. We're not making a Rocky toy. And in the very next issue, issue 3, they had a retraction. Rocky is not, has never been, and never will be a member of G.I. Joe, and there's never been any reference to this again. But they did eventually find the prototype sculpts. Those have been printed. And the Cobra, the enemy, they had a bad guy who was specifically designed to be the evil counterpart to Rocky. That was Big Boa, and he did come out. I love that toy. So that's that. Now we get back to, issue 1. This is G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. This is the revamp of the G.I. Joe toy line, basically from the mind of Ron Rudat and Larry Hama. You know, Ron, he worked at Hasbro, and he came up with a pitch. Let's bring back G.I. Joe. He's also the guy that designed the look of every single action figure for, like, its entire first 5-year run. Well, over at Marvel Comics in 1981, Larry Hama was basically pitching a new comic called Fury Force. This was about Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was about his son, Nick Fury Jr., and he has an elite team of like special forces, soldiers, and what have you, and they are going to go on various missions. So they could see the characters from Fury Force, they matched up with Ron Rudat's characters. There was a Snake Eyes type character. There was a Scarlet type character. Larry Hama, he went and took every one of the characters from Ron Rudat, and he wrote a dossier spelling out all the info about every character. He named them, gave them all a backstory, just as his own personal reference material to then write this comic series, of which he wrote almost every single issue. Kirk Bazigian, he saw those dossiers and he said, whoa, we need these. So he turned them into the little file cards that came on the back of every action figure packaging for G.I. Joe. And G.I. Joe had never had an enemy before. Editor Archie Goodwin, he said, well, Fury Force is probably going to be up against Hydra, as you've seen in the new Marvel movies, you know, Hail Hydra. Well, he said, okay, so G.I. Joe, they'll go up against a terrorist group. It'll be called Cobra. And then Ron Rudat drew the Cobra logo, the emblem, that Cobra head that's on the chest of Cobra Commander and on the sides of all their vehicles. So this comic, it ran for 155 issues. But then look at this. I've got this tiny digest size version, and then I have the giant Marvel Treasury Edition. So I've got it in 3 sizes. Pretty cool, right? Check it out. Look, $1.50 when it came out. The digest one, $1.50. The Marvel Treasury Edition, $1.50. So it's always $1.50 no matter what size. Look inside this thing. Even with an electron microscope, you can't read this. The colors look more vibrant in the original issue, but I want you to look at the big one. How often do you get to look at a comic this big? Check it out. Signed by Larry Hama. So you've got your Herb Trimpe cover art. Now this Marvel Treasury Edition of inside cover is the first G.I. Joe toy. This is the HAL. And there is Grand Slam. Unfortunately, they have him call himself Flash. Ugh. It's not Flash, it's Grand Slam. So we start with this 1-page part of a story. This is not part of the story in the comic. So this is like a previous mission that they're finishing up or something. They got this important lady here. She is Dr. Adele Burkhart. She is the nation's top nuclear physicist. Hey, nuclear. The Baroness. The interesting thing about the Baroness is she was the only character that is featured in this first issue that was not yet an action figure. Well, not quite true. I'll show you a little bit more in a bit. Her action figure would not come out until the following year, 1983. Now this is a little strange. So she throws Dr. Burkhart out the window with this balloon that she has strapped to her back that somehow like just inflates itself, takes them both into the air with the Baroness. I mean, it looks like she's hanging on her, but if you look at her arms, they're not hanging on anything. But if you look, okay, so she's hanging on the ropes. It's weird. Throw her out a window and then grab onto the rope from this inflating balloon that then, I guess it inflated itself with helium, like 100 billion gallons of helium, because they float up to this hook coming from the helicopter that they're not hooked on. They're actually, I don't know, maybe they climbed up the rope. No, she's just hanging on the string. So I guess she convinced Dr. Burkhart to grab onto the enemy's rope and hand over hand climb up it with another human body hanging for. That is a strong woman to rope climb like that with another human on her. And with a helping hand from the enemy, climb aboard. Somehow this balloon, it's not caught in the propeller blades. Okay, not gonna complain anymore. Check out in the Pentagon. Look at this room. Awesome, right? And you've got General Flagg. Now, General Flagg, he is the guy that put together the G.I. Joe team. As far as the comics are concerned, not really the cartoon like that, or the toy line, because General Flagg was not in the toy line. He was not in the cartoon. But they did, in the toys, they did come up with the aircraft carrier, which was called the Flag, with 2 G's, just like General Flagg. But the guy, the admiral that came with the toy, he was Admiral Keelhaul, right? So here we go. We got the Cobra soldiers. So here they're talking about this, assemble get your group together. The Special Counterterrorist Group Delta, codename G.I. Joe. So Delta, these are the, the NATO phonetic alphabet, Alpha, Gamma, whatever C is, Charlie, right? Delta, Gamma. Anyway, so what does this mean? It's a counter-terrorist group, Delta. So I'm thinking this is inspired by Delta Force, which was special forces in the Army that they were created in 1977. So this would have been recent history for it. And they were a counter-terrorist group, which is what G.I. Joe is. And they recruited from the other special forces teams, like they would recruit Green Berets and Army Rangers and what have you, just like G.I. Joe. And they're involved, Delta Force. They're involved in not only counterterrorism but like reconnaissance, high value targets, hostage rescue, which is what G.I. Joe has to do in this. They have to rescue the hostage, Dr. Burkhart, from the terrorists, Cobra. So there you go. And you see here is the team. You've got Hawk, the leader of G.I. Joe, as far as the 1982 toy line and the original comics. By the time the cartoon came out a few years later, it was Duke. Duke ran the team. And Hawk had been promoted. His action figure was a little different by then. Anyways, my brother had the Hawk toy. He came with the Mobile Missile Command Center, right? Yeah. Grand Slam, there we go. It was my favorite. Short Fuse, Flash, Grunt, Breaker, Rock and Roll, Zap, Scarlet, Stealer, Clutch, Stalker, and Snake Eyes. These were the original, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the original 13 G.I. Joe figures. And then for Cobra, they had the Cobra Officer and the Cobra Soldier. So those were your 2 bad guys called the Cobra the Enemy. And it also had Shooter. So who is this? Well, they just, had to have somebody here. So this is like a tribute to Marvel Editor-in-Chief Jim Shooter. And because it's not a real character from the team, she's got her hand covering the face. Well, Devil's Due Publishing put out a 3-issue comic written by Larry Hama called G.I. Joe Declassified. And it's a story that takes place just prior to issue 1. And it features Shooter. But in there, they've made her a girl, and the rest of the team doesn't even know she's on G.I. Joe, and she ends up dying before this first issue even starts. So I haven't read it. I don't really want to buy it because it's pretty expensive now, and whatever. And we got the Vamp. Love that toy. Came with the driver clutch. Grand Slam sitting there. I love all these guys. Check it out. The training center. And Cobra Island. So here we go. This is the other character that was not yet a toy. Also from Cobra, this is Cobra Commander. Now, they did have a Cobra Commander action figure you could get. It was a mail-away offer to get him, and he was in his helmeted garb. This hooded version didn't come out until 1980... I don't know if it was 83 or 84. I can't remember at this point, but that was a mail-away figure, which I got. It cost me $1. I was very angry because my brother grabbed it out of the mailbox first. We were both walking home from the bus stop, and he went to the mailbox first. It took 6 to 8 weeks to get to the house. I think it took the full 8 weeks. I was starting to get a little, lax in making sure I was the first to the mailbox at that point. I was starting to think this thing's never arriving. And, of course, there it was in its little white box, and my brother grabbed it, and he held it up to the sun and looked through the crack, and he goes, "Oh, it's Cobra Commander." And for whatever reason, I was just so upset that he laid eyes on it first. Who cares, right? But I love that toy. One of my favorite, maybe my favorite illustration from this first issue. Love this. See, you just don't get cooler than this. This is the most fun, exciting comic in the history of the universe. Love it. The Vamp with the Hal. I had both of those. I would do that as well. My brother had the Mobat with Steeler. I had the Ram. I got the Ram a little bit later on. Put rock and roll on it. This is what I'm talking about. Wow, it's like that old tank video game. Not really, but yeah, really. It is. It's cool. And they got the Hal over here. This is, what a great ambush. Doesn't this look awesome in this huge size? Love the use of bazookas. You know, they used bazookas in the toy line. They had the character Bazooka who came with a bazooka. But it was interesting to find out that, you know, by the time the 80s started and, you know, they had bazookas in here, they were so outdated. It was a World War II weapon that was not used anymore. I had no idea. And really, the original line of G.I. Joe figures were based on the little green army men, which always had, you know, a bazooka guy. It had a mortar soldier. So you got Zap with the, you know what, Bazooka was a later figure. Zap had the bazooka to begin with. The actual character Bazooka that came out a few years later had another type of shoulder rocket launcher. And then the mortar soldier, he was short fuse. But it also, you know, like in '83, they came out with Tripwire, which was the Minesweeper. All of those little army men action figures always had a Minesweeper. They always had the communication guy, you know. So they've got, in this original line, Breaker, the communication guy. Look at this! Epic! The Pit, the G.I. Joe Command Center. They did have a base that you could get in 1983, maybe, which I got a little bit later on. Bought it off Brian Hughes down the road. I love that thing, but it was nothing compared to the Pit. They did not make the Pit as a toy, so gosh, it's fun looking at this. It's so big. So here's the extra story. Hot Potato, that for whatever reason they didn't reprint it in the trade paperbacks from Marvel. So this is the only story. You got to go to the original issue, or maybe it was reprinted in the IDW reprints, which did the whole run. I would be shocked if it wasn't in there. So that would be the way to go. Actually, this is the way to go. This huge format size. I bought this at a convention for a couple of dollars. You know, it's not in fantastic shape, so it's probably not very rare. It was affordable. You know, it's got stains on it and what have you. You can get something like this. Now, where are you going to store it? That's a question. Look, you got a tear on it. Hey, look, so an ad for the actual toys. Pretty cool, huh? So you're saying, well, these aren't 13 figures. Yeah, these are the individually sold figures. The other figures you had to get because they came with vehicles. You know, Steeler came with the Mobat and so on. But here it is, the mail-away offer for Cobra Commander, and it is the helmeted version. He does put the helmet on in the story. I probably skimmed right past it. This is fun here. You get to learn a little bit about the characters. I don't know why her head is twisted so far back, but it is. Other than that, it's a cool picture. HTAM. So HT, that would be Herb Trimpe, penciler. AM, I'm guessing that's Al Milgram, inker. Look at this. So fun. You will be mine, you will be mine, all mine. So he's listening to Rolling Stones. Orange Smash instead of Orange Crush. Got Flash here, peeling potatoes. Oh, this is the best. Look at Stalker with the jump jetpack. Wow. You almost get like a sense of being scared of heights just looking at this drawing. Oh, I would hate to be that. Oh, I was that high. I jumped out of a plane. Yeah, it was scary. Don't want to do that again. And so you get these fun subscriptions, you know, which my mom got us. We got G.I. Joe. What else did we get? We got The Incredible Hulk. We got Star Wars. Maybe that was it as far as subscriptions, and then individual issues that my dad would get for us at 7-Eleven, especially when we were sick. Amazing Spider-Man, definitely. Love that. Fantastic Four, so great. Marvel Team Up was Spider-Man teamed up with other characters, which was fun. Marvel Tales was reprints, but they were of comics that came out before I was born, so that was a great way to read old comics. Later on, I would get some of these on my own. You know, X-Men, it took me into the 90s before I started getting X-Men comics, you know, early 90s, because in the 80s, it was just so complicated. I wasn't old enough to figure it out. There we go. Hulk. Hey, the Vamp. Pretty cool. They really know how to sell the toy in the comic. This is a great tie-in. And the Mobat. Love it. Oh, this is interesting. So, number 6, Commander's Cupola. There is no number 6 on here. Number 12, Zoom Control. There is no number 12 on here. There they are. Number 6, number 12. It's on the helmet. So, for whatever reason, oh, look, they reformatted 8 and 9. So they moved stuff around, and in doing so, I guess they forgot to put the number 6, forgot to put the number 12. Huh. Fun, right? Let me show you a few more things. So in a recent video, I showed this book from Kickley of the Hector Garrido inspired homage paintings to the G.I. Joe figures, right? Well, I forgot to show you, he came out with another set of G.I. Joe paintings and then put them out as like small prints, like a limited collection of prints. I got those as well. Let me show you this. I love them. So check this out. So he goes into more figures, but he puts them in. They're not just recreations of Hector Garrido paintings for the action figure set. These are original illustrations of them in action. And I love them because it gives you that feeling of what it would be like, what it was like to play with the toys and what you had going on in your imagination. Look, we got Flint. I love Flint. Lady J. That's his girlfriend, you know? You know, they had a kid who then grew up and was in the Transformers cartoon that this, you know, season 3 that took place after the movie where it's off in the future. Pretty cool, huh? Shipwreck. So far, they're just, you know, they're in action poses with explosions behind them. Now we get into just kind of character profiles with the no background, but it's characters that he didn't feature in the first book. These are later figures. This is like 1984. Snow Serpent, that's 1985, I think. You know, these he didn't repeat himself when it came to a choice of characters. So this is very cool. We've got Airtight, right? Dusty, Televiper. Oh, sorry, let me center these more. The Crimson Guard. So now here we go. We've got Snake Eyes version 2 with the wolf Timber. This is when they made Snake Eyes into a ninja. Originally in 82, he was just a commando. By 85, they had made him into a ninja. Sergeant Slaughter. And that was another toy you could get, that little turret thing. It's great. Look at this. What's this? The Snowcat. Frostbite is the driver. There's 1985 Snake Eyes, I believe, or is that Seal? I don't remember. Here's all these are the Snow Serpents. This is the Snow Cat. There's Snow Job. Got Lady J. Oh, look at this, coming to save the little girl, but it's an ambush set up. This is what I'm talking about. These are the adventures you would play out in your imagination when you had the toys. Boy, he really brings them to life in his paintings. The Trouble Bubbles. Scarlet and Snake Eyes commandeered one, and they're coming up fast and furious behind the Televipers. Boy, I love how he painted through the glass. And then, you know, out of focus. It's really great. Oh, this is the best. You got Quick Kick. You got Alpine and Bazooka. They were teamed up on the cartoon as best buds. And the Cobra Ferret. So they've stolen a couple Cobra vehicles. This was the vehicle I had the most fun playing with as a kid. I loved this with the rubber tires. God, so much fun. This is the Awe Striker, a G.I. Joe vehicle, and it's been stolen by the Crimson Twins, bad guys. So that's pretty cool. Look at that. You can imagine they're in hot pursuit. Oh, okay. So we got a Cobra tank and the Crimson Guard. They're looking for the Joes. The Joes are hiding right practically in plain sight. You got Footloose and is that Crankcase? This is great. Oh, wow. And now you've got the Dreadnoks. They are destroying this was the second G.I. Joe tank. This was the Mauler. You've got Ripper, Torch, and Buzzer. Look at that melting. Golly. This makes you want to draw and paint, right? Doesn't it? Play with the toys or something? Read the comic? Watch the cartoon? This takes me back. Look at this. So these are the Cobra Eels and Firefly on the what was that? The night something. I had that raft. I love that thing. I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, but oh, what a fun, look at this, fun adventures to have. I want to get in the pool and play with this. I know I'm almost 50 years old, but this is what art can do. Can bring out the child in you, bring out excitement. A lot more excitement than just the day-to-day humdrum, same old, same old. Look at this. I love this. Kickley, you do great work. It's not the Moccassin. I can't remember the name of that boat. Snake Eyes coming up to kill probably a crimson, not a crimson. I said his name before. The CGs, Crimson Guard. And that's the flag. Look at that. Ooh, all the trouble bubbles in the sky. Wow. Oh, upside down. I love this. This was the tactical battle platform. No. This is the, what do they call that? The castle. What did they call that? It's up here on the aircraft carrier. Look, so they've zoomed in on the same scene. Look, this is like a continuing story. They came up, and now they're climbing aboard. Comes up, they're all attacking the flag. I love this. Oh, even better, look, toll booth. It's toll booth. Toll booth in action. Nobody's done that. That's the best. Spirit, Shipwreck, Polly. There he is, Admiral Keelhaul. This, look, saved the best for last. Toll booth in action. That's the best. So after Ron Rudat had done his 5-year run of designing characters, kind of handed off the reins to Mark Pennington, who then took up the mantle to create basically all of the characters after that. Basically, so 82 to 85, I'm sorry, 82 to 87, that's 5 years. That is the comics and toys and cartoons all up into G.I. Joe, the animated movie that came out in 87. Then they hand the reins off to Mark Pennington. And the comics and the toys continued after that. The cartoon was then picked up by another company. They did a few seasons. I haven't ever seen it. I didn't even know it existed when I was a kid because by then I had moved on. And I haven't really sought it out because it is universally despised. So there we go. But I do like these characters that were coming out that Mark Pennington designed. So here we have, this is Outback, right? Joe Designer, 85 to 88. So he jumped on board a little bit early. I know he did some collaborations with Ron, and he didn't hang on too long. So he did the last batch of figures after Ron. And they were the last batch of figures that I got. I like those figures. And then I've come to learn as an adult what figures came out afterwards. And there are action figures, there are vehicles, there are bases and stuff that came out a year after I got out of G.I. Joe that are phenomenal. And I absolutely know I would have had the most fun in the world playing with them as a kid. So here we've got an art book by Mark Pennington of G.I. Joe. He signed it to me when I met him. I think this is the second version of Rock and Roll. This is Lieutenant Falcon. He was voiced by Don Johnson in the animated movie. Lowlight. Love that. My brother had Lowlight when we were kids. Gung Ho. This, I think, is an Alley Viper. This was after my time. This was during my time. Snow Job. This is Beachhead. Storm Shadow. I don't know. This is an Iron Grenadier. That was Destro's troops. It's nice. So this is the second version of Storm Shadow. This, I don't know this character's name. Budo or something. This is after my time. Huh. Another one of Storm Shadow. This is another character after my time, but this character is like purple and red. Another Storm Shadow and another Alley Viper. I like the little temple thing with the lantern. It's nice. Another Beachhead. Oh, Tunnel Rat. Oh, and this is Hit and Run. This came out the year after I stopped, but this is a very cool. Anyway, look at this. He drew me an illustration just for me. Look at that, Kevin. Looks like, is that Grunt? Love it. Get the cigar, smoke. There we go. I don't know who this is. Oh, this is Destro from the Iron Grenadiers. The spike collar, the shoulder things. This is Destro's head. Very neat. Oh, then I got this book. This is another guy on Facebook. Shay. This is can't remember his first name. anyways, he was doing art for the month of November. Jovember. Every day he did a G.I. Joe, is it painting? Illustration. And then at the end of the month, he just put them together and sold a book. Look at that. That's airtight. Sci-fi. Bazooka. It's funny. The Baroness. The Bat. Isn't this fun? Beachhead. CoverGirl. Barbecue. Mr. Barbecue. I am the Viper. I've come to Viper Windows Roadblock. Oh, the driver of the water moccasin. What was his name? My memory is fading. Ripper from the Dreadnoks. Duke. Flash. It's kind of a fun style. Look, they all got these like red noses, like they're drunk. It's funny. Zartan. Cobra Officer, Cobra Eel, Destro. Probably my favorite actual toy action figure to play with. Love the rocket launchers on his wrist, which aren't in this illustration. Flint and Lady J. Major Blood. Scrap Iron. Takes me back. Mark had him, I think. Can't remember his name. Was it Frostbite? Can't remember. But that's the G.I. Joe Wetsuit. That's Wetsuit. He was like antagonists with Leatherneck on the cartoon. Love that. Lowlight, Gung Ho, Scarlet, Stalker, and Serpentor. And the Crimson Twins. Last but not least of the ephemera is this Wolf Like Me Vinyl 45. So what is this? Well, side B is the song I Get to Drive It by Word Burglar. This is, so in the UK, G.I. Joe was called Action Force, and they started out with different bad guys called sorry, I can't remember anything right now. But anyways, they had their own bad guys that then became Cobra. They had a lot of cool stuff. This was one of their vehicles. The toy was actually based on a Star Wars TIE Fighter. And Word Burglar, he is very big in the online G.I. Joe community and has been for a long time. He puts out a lot of, what would you call it, nerdcore rap or something. I've collected everything from him, all his music. It's rap, but it's like he's got entire albums about G.I. Joe songs and Transformers and everything. It's so great. And this was one of his latest songs. He put it out on this vinyl record. And this is another song, Cosmic Orphan. This was Kickstarter, and I've got the digital downloads of the songs because I was a Kickstarter backer, and you know, I love everything by Word Burglar. But part of the Kickstarter was I wanted this 45 because they got Ken Kelly to paint the cover. Ken Kelly, okay, so Frank Frazetta's wife was Ellie Frazetta. Her maiden name was Ellie Kelly. Her nephew is Ken Kelly. Ken Kelly is the artist, basically the only artist to ever train under Frank Frazetta. Oh, you know what? It's Ellie's cousin, not her nephew. So they're cousins. So Frank was his cousin through marriage, and he was a famous artist. I featured him in previous videos. I met him. He is the guy that painted the Kiss album covers. I got him to sign the Kiss album that goes with the Kiss comic from Marvel that my dad printed. Anyways, he also painted all of the action figure packaging art for the Micronauts toy line. You know, the Hornetroid, the Antron, all of those great things. Well, they got him to paint this album cover. This was the last thing he ever worked on before he died. So like I said, I was lucky enough to meet him, and I wanted to add this to my collection of Ken Kelly art. And I just listened to the digital version of the Word Burglar song. So But now we get back to finishing up G.I. Joe. So here are the final issues. This is issue 296. It is All In Part 1. 297. All In Part 2. Look at that. More characters. Maybe I need to start spreading these out. And like I said, these are all written by Larry Hama. 298. All In Part 3. I'm going to run out of room here. So let's move these up. My laptop's in the way. Okay, so bear with me. 299, All In, Part 4. And then 300, the final issue of G.I. Joe. Like I said, written by Larry Hama. What a run. As far as Hama is concerned, 1982 to 2022, writing this story. All In Part 5. Now, as you can see, cover looks a little different. I got a bunch of these. So here's one where it's signed by the writer and the artist. No. Who's this signed by? That is... Let's take a look. So, I think one of them is Jamie Sullivan, who I have a lot of stuff from, and I've showed it before. Yeah. So he's the one that did the cover art. And I think that is Audrey Sullivan. Yeah, that would be his daughter. So it's signed, that's right. Sorry. I'm friends with them on Facebook. Jamie Sullivan and his daughter Audrey Sullivan. So Jamie draws the covers, all these covers, and his daughter colors them. And I got these from them, so it's double signed. And then here's another one without any of the wording on it. It's just the raw art. Got it signed. Let me show you. This one is actually a fold-out cover. So, pretty awesome, right? So much to it. And then I've got one more. This is just an alternate cover. Who's this by? This is by, let's look in the back. This one is by Netho Diaz. So here you've got all the different covers for issue 300. This is the one I read. I'm not going to really bother telling you what happens in it because it's part 5. And I didn't read parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so I was kind of lost when it started. And even though it is the final issue, it ends on a cliffhanger and it says to be continued. So I need to go back and read them all and get a better gist of it. But so you say final issue, but to be continued, yes. These are from IDW. They picked up the license after Marvel, but they continued the numbering series, and they kept the writer, Larry Hama. But now the title has been picked up by Skybound Entertainment. And in November, 11 months after issue 300 came out, issue 301 will be out. Picking up the storyline, Larry Hama writing it. So it's on my pull service. I'll be getting it from the comic store. So there you go. 80 years of G.I. Joe comics. Until next time.